I'm Ryan.
And I'm Talia.
We're both licensed marriage and family therapists.
And today,
like every day,
we're here to debunk myths
and deliver truth about dating, relationships, and everything in between.
Trust us.
It's awesome. Episode 91. What were you saying, Talia?
I was just saying hello and wondering how your holidays were. I imagine there's maybe some stuff to unpack after all of your gifts.
Yes, I need to book a full session with you right now. And we'll just let the listeners listen to
that would be our most popular episode.
This place, and I'll just really undeck these halls.
Yes.
Debrief it up.
Yeah, the holidays have passed. You're probably listening to this after Christmas, Hanukkah, etc., whatever you celebrate for the holidays. And I guarantee there are some things that you went through that you look back on and you're like, I didn't love that. I should have set that boundary. I should have had that conversation. So that's what today's episode is for, to kind of help you deal with that the post-holiday letdown, if you will.
Yeah.
Could have had a good time, but this episode isn't as much for you as it is for the people who are like, get me out of my in-laws family. What am I doing?
Yes. Because we know, historically, the holidays are stressful for all of us because it's a time lots is going on. So we're already stressed trying to juggle our day-to-day responsibilities, plus put together the holiday festivities. Yes. And then we get to be around people that maybe we don't like to spend that much time with that often. If you're from one of those friend or family groups where actually you click really well, bless you. Well done.
Episode. This is not for you.
I'm going to comment a little bit on what to do on this, but it's going to be
I'm like, let's talk about the nitty gritty.
Yeah. It's going to be like a 5-minute little blurb at the start in just a second. But I do think there's a place to debrief, even if you had a really wonderful holiday experience. But since it tends to be stressful, and it would be nice to kind of talk about, okay, so you can go back and listen to our holiday survival guide that we did previously in a different holiday season a year or two ago. I forget when. That's the primer to listen to, if you ever needed to get ready for a big family gathering or holiday. This is now, it's past. This episode's coming out on actual Christmas Day. So everyone probably listening to post that. So.
And if you are listening on Christmas Day, bolster yourself. Brace yourself for the day and go listen to one of our boundaries episodes and then come back and listen to this one tomorrow.
Yeah. So I think there's different scenarios of just sort of how the holidays go depending upon everyone's context. It's super different, but maybe you had a really wonderful, lovely experience. You did the good prep ahead of time. You were in a good emotional place. You set some appropriate boundaries, and you had a wonderful connection in your relationship was thriving, which meant with the rest of the people you included was really good. Rock on. Or maybe it was a decent time and there's still a lot of stress and emotional labor was put in to make sure you and your partner were in connection while it was going on. It took a little extra effort, but it went pretty smoothly. And then there's also the as we knew it was going to be stressful, things were not super awesome. There was some conflict, tension, maybe even got into a fight, and that's holidays. So I'm kind of breaking that into 3 different versions of which you might want to reflect back on and consider, okay, where do we go moving forward? What do we need to do individually in the relationship to kind of just get ready to reconnect and heal? What do we need to do in our relationship if there needs to be some direct connection, attunement in between, you and your partner, that kind of stuff. And then also largely, with the family, is there anything you as a couple need to attune to the rest of the family or friends that you were together with? So that's kind of where I'm thinking about this debrief thing.
Yeah, I also want to take the angle of if you feel guilty or ashamed or you're kind of kicking yourself because you should have set a boundary or you could have set a boundary but didn't. I've dealt with that before as well because like we talked about in the beliefs episode and many other episodes, I want to see myself a certain way and ideally strive to have others see me in a similar way, not egotistical or unrealistic. But if I'm living my life according to my values, I would also like that to be known. And it's uncomfortable when it's in your in-laws rather than it's your own family, around your own family, depending. I think it is arguably, even if it's difficult, it would be less difficult because they can't really unfamily you, at a core fear. you can't just like go down to the courthouse and be like, "You're not my sibling anymore. You're not my parent anymore." Much to some people's dismay. I wish some people wish they could, but again,
Well, side note,
yeah,
that's why
yeah,
holidays can be so stressful for so many families is because these aren't the friends you've chosen, the people you've chosen in your life. Sometimes you're kind of stuck with that sibling or that
yes,
uncle is always the
yes,
joke. Like
yeah.
that one uncle, good God. And if you don't have that, remember you're that uncle.
Yeah, you are the person if you can't identify the person. The 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 way that you wanna show up and be seen and, like, something for me and, like, the whole system that I deal with when I'm with my family, they know about not getting sick. That is my biggest trigger. I have trauma from that. I was in, like, the hospital, almost did not survive when I was a teenager. I get PTSD like, they know that. My mom is a doctor. We were raised very germ conscious. You don't leave the house when you're sick. The list goes on and on. It's also in my illness policy in my practice. His family are not that way because they are huge and they have the belief that if one is sick, inevitably they will all get sick. And so they're not as mindful. And it drives me up a wall. And at the beginning, I was like, I'm going to be cool. I'm not going to say anything. And now we're a while in and I'm like, is everybody healthy? Is that, and I don't really care how they see me now because to me, especially with what's going on with the family I came from,
Mhm,
I need to be very mindful for certain health diagnoses. I
mhm,
can't be like, I can't have that mindset. I don't wanna have that mindset, I can't have that mindset. So around the holidays and setting that stressful, that is a boundary that I would have to say is if there are people ill, I can't go. Like,
mhm,
understand that if that's what's happening in your household, I will not be in attendance because I have other things to be mindful of because I have other family members who are recovering from things and they cannot get sick and neither can I because I'm a very busy person. So it's navigating and negotiating and whatever people's boundaries are. If that one uncle is going to be there and they always make comments about my daughter's weight and she's struggling with an eating disorder, do we go? If I'm going to be doing this and I'm going to be activated or the people who don't respect my boundaries are going to be there, how do I navigate that? And can I set them? And we talked about this in the holiday survival guide episode last
mhm.
year and the year before as well. This is our fourth one. This is our fourth one.
I
I
don't
think
know.
19, 20, 20, 21, 22. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
our fourth holiday one.
yeah.
So being able to know that you can set those boundaries and be seen a certain way so you can circumvent the holiday debrief afterwards with yourself or your therapist sometimes of feeling guilt.
Mhm,
Wish I would have said something. So
mhm,
I want to also take an angle at some point in the episode of here's how you can say it and here's how you can have it land softly and tell the person early and often. So by the time you show up, there isn't a surprise if you leave early because something happens because you're like, I told you this 4 times in our family text message thread.
mhm.
I will not be there if this happens, or I will leave if this happens. So that's kind of part of the angle I want to take as a debrief
Yeah.
because a lot of the clients I work with have dealt with that in their family that shoulda, coulda, woulda. Why didn't I do that? Well, I wanted to be accepted even so much that I would sacrifice myself. So
Yeah.
that's what
Yeah,
I
let's layer that into the 3 scenarios that I
yeah,
pointed out, although really it's the last 2.
perfect.
So
Okay.
on the first scenario, like I said, pretty simple that things went really well, you prepped really well, you felt good and comfortable in your skin and boundaries, you and your partner had good connection, you felt great sharing the holidays in your relationship and then that with other people. Awesome, you had a great holiday. I just wanted to mention briefly then, still take a moment to debrief and just like
Say
what
thank you
holidays
for what went
yeah,
well. Yes.
exactly. Say thank you, identify what went well, and sit in that. That's one of the things that many holidays allows us to do is to sit in gratitude for something.
Yeah.
Do that here also. That's going to guarantee, not guarantee, but that's going to make it way
Or
more likely that in the future you're going to have more of those experiences with more holidays. So sit and give yourself appreciation for, say, the boundaries you did stick with that you liked that helped you feel good and safe and secure. So thank yourself. Turn to your partner and, think about but I mean, I wasn't planning on going in this deep of it, but like, I always do the classic pick 3 things. Pick
mhm,
3 things like, wow, that went so well. What was 3 things that you really appreciate about your partner? And articulate that to them. And then maybe have a fun little chat with your partner about, ooh, what did we really like that our family did? Were they really understanding when we were a little bit late because of the kids. And then that didn't turn into a, oh my gosh, you're 20
right.
minutes late for
They're all
dinner
over the
blow
place.
up. But instead they're like, oh yeah, we totally get it. You had, the little one, making a fuss. Got it. And
They
then
were
you two as a,
empathetic and understanding. Right,
yeah,
right.
you as a couple that can
Yeah.
together say, "Hey, mom and dad, that was really awesome. Hey, aunt whoever, that was really cool." So, really simple, but if things went really well, don't just take that for granted and don't let I get that, like, holidays are so busy, and as soon as it's done, it's, like, back to the next busyness of, like, back to normal kind of thing. Take a moment and just reflect, and if you want a real tip and trick or, like, big brownie points for maybe relationships you're trying to like, are newly you're rebuilding or you're newly building, write it down in a handwritten note. Oh my gosh, Hallmark.
We're just like, "We're taking notes. This is a good idea."
There we go. Yeah, that little bit of effort that just breeds so much goodwill. So that is, I guess, my 5-minute spiel. When things go well, enjoy that and build that, and that positive sentiment will just flourish.
Definitely.
Okay, now to the real heart of what we're talking about.
My favorite.
Let's say you're debriefing, and I'm gonna start with the more like kind of nuanced ones. I think it's more interesting. It's where like things went well. You don't have any like major catastrophe blowups, but it was still really stressful. You had to put a lot of energy to keep the peace, or maybe there was a something like an uncle did say something, and you had to kind of step in and care for your niece or something. There could have just been some kind of like family dynamic, or maybe you and your partner had like a little thing that normally could have turned into we need to go have a private chat, but you kind of smoothed it over because you're focusing on the holidays. I don't know, something like that where it wasn't catastrophic, but it was difficult, stressful, and hard.
Mhm.
So how did he break from that? Why don't we start with layering in your like coulda, shoulda, woulda idea and the kind of some of the guilt that can come with it? Because it doesn't mean that anything was like horrible, but there might have been, ooh, I was planning on setting a boundary differently or not speaking up in that moment. And then my big mouth opened up or whatever. I don't know. But where
Mhm.
would you kind of use that kind of guilt theme you have in that scenario to kind of debrief after a successful holiday, but one that was very, very emotionally draining?
I first take to my notes app, my my unofficial therapist, my journal,
Mhm.
and I write down and this is what other people can do as well. I
Yeah.
write down the scenario from a factual situation. Like I go back to like police officer mindset of like, what were the facts? Where was I? Who was like,
Mhm.
I think of it like that. And so I internally debrief with, okay, what actually happened? And obviously sometimes things get layered in of how I feel or how I interpreted. So I just put those in like italics. So I know like my train of thought. If you are able to just go through factually afterwards, take a look at, okay, all of these things happen. What meaning did you make out of it? And how did it make you feel? What did it make you think? How did it make you feel? And then sit with that. Why was this upsetting to me? Why was it upsetting when I showed up and this happened? Why was it upsetting when I showed up and the uncle that I don't like or the aunt that always makes comments I don't like
Mhm.
was there? Well, because I was in fear that what happened the last family event would happen this family event. Makes perfect sense. And why would that be negative? And then you keep going down like the 5 whys until you get to the core of it, which is often, like we talked about in our last episode, this crosses some sort of value for me.
Mhm.
This is something that I don't like when it happens, or I wanted it to happen and it didn't, either one. And you debrief with yourself if you're not able to have or you don't have a therapist to debrief with what was so upsetting and whose job is it or whose role is it to create a solution. So, is this something you need to ask your partner to set a boundary because it's their family? You are entering into your partner's family. They're your in-laws or they're your in-laws to be, whatever, we'll just call it that because that's a good that
Yeah.
gives you a mental framework. It's like you came from your family. Your role is to set your boundaries with your family. It's not that your partner can't, but it's not technically their role because they're entering into a system that's existed for a long time. Same thing if the shoe's on the other foot. So if you would like your partner to set a boundary or you have set it and their family hasn't listened to you, you can work with your partner ideally. And if not, this is where couples therapy comes in. Work with them on it would help me to feel supported if you tell them you can send this message. This is what it would mean to me. This is the positive effect it would have on our relationship because I'm feeling stressed. I'm feeling chaotic. Yes, it didn't turn into a fight to your point,
Mhm.
but I didn't get to be my full self. I wasn't authentic. I was on edge the whole time to keep the peace, and I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And I don't and I always tell myself, do I want to fight about this in a couples therapist office in 20 years or do I want to come across as a bitch right now and set the boundary? And I usually choose the latter
Mhm.
because I don't actually mind that I'm seen that way because I'm being kind and true to myself.
Mhm.
And that's on the other person if they don't want to handle it or they're like, which is usually what happens in an in-law family, you're getting used to them. It's like,
Mhm.
whoa, we've lived like this for 20 something, 30 something, 40 something years. And here you come in, bull in a china shop with all of your stuff. It takes time to get acclimated. Not
Mhm.
every time you meet your in-laws or the in-laws to be is going to be this like wonderful holiday experience. Yes, they might welcome you with open arms. And as we know in other relationships, you get to know them more. You don't know what's stressful around the holidays. What if they lost somebody? What if
Mhm.
this is the first holiday season without someone present that was a really important
Mhm.
family member? Like, be mindful of when you can ask for your needs to be met. So in that debrief, I get out my notes app, I look at what happened, I look at what I wanted instead, and then I enlist my partner to set a boundary if need be, or I text a reminder again because I don't mind being seen in a negative light. Not that ever would be, but God forbid that's what would happen. I'm okay with it. Like I got
Yeah.
broad shoulders. If you have an issue with me, come talk to me about it. But like this value is more important than you liking me.
Mhm.
So knowing how to balance that when you're kind of like not re-gluing, but like you're being glued into a new family or like you're
Mhm.
an added puzzle piece.
Yeah, I love that. I would add on this kind of debrief with your partner, look to where you two can discuss some of the things that were difficult and
Mhm.
look for more understanding. And so when you were
Mhm.
saying something you said made me think about this, like good example of maybe when it's just like you, your partner, and your in-laws, so it's like the
Yeah.
4 of you, things
Yeah.
are all good because maybe you spend a little more time, of course, with, like, your partner's parents if they're still around, and then you've been able to, like, do that. But now you're in the larger family context of those aunt and uncles are around.
Mhm.
Well, and then suddenly, like, mother-in-law isn't, in a sense, like, responding the same way that she was originally when it was just, like, double date status, not holiday. Okay, what's going on there? And maybe ask your partner, hey, can you help me understand? Like, normally your mom is really supportive of me and like really enjoys my jokes. And then she kind of snapped at me during the holidays. And normally, like, we would have totally like bonded over that joke. What's going on? That was kind of weird. And
Yes.
maybe there's some place to learn. Like, yeah, that's because uncle's here, and you can
Exactly.
learn that there's a dynamic there that you didn't know about previously, or that there's some tension there, and it's not for you to fix or deal with, but it's for you to understand, "Oh, that's why that was so hard." So that's a good place to debrief to kinda like using your tool of or adding it to what you're saying, your tool of writing down, "Here's what happened. Here was my thoughts and feelings, how I made meaning of what happened." Turning to your partner for the in-law example is useful to help get a deeper understanding. It'll help you make more meaning, which might change then your response. So that's a good way to debrief, to go, that was hard. I don't know why that sucked. Let's talk about it together, my partner, so that we can get clarity and maybe have more understanding. Because all this comes down to, generally speaking, when we understand things and other people's perspective, that is empathy, and that allows us to have more compassion, and that's a good way to, like, move forward.
I'm so glad that you brought that up because this also goes for if you're listening to this, you as the individual. Are you having some seasonal depression? Are you having some anxiety? Have you had a recent loss? The other people in your life, this goes for everybody, but especially family systems, other people in your life don't know the intricacies of your inner world the way that you do. So if you are having a rough time, if you are at your wit's end with your kids because they are just stressing you out and pulling on you, and if they scream one more time, you fucking snap. Like, where are you at with your bandwidth and your frustration tolerance? And let your family know. We have had such a rough day getting the kids in the car. Please do not take it personally if I'm in a bad mood or if I'm feeling short. I'm at the end of my rope. I do not want to be asked to help when I walk in the door. I will need 20 minutes of absolute and complete silence, and I want to go in the extra bedroom and just be alone with myself for 20 minutes, and I don't want anybody to need me, and then I can come out and be a real person, as I like to say. So let other people know ahead of time, and if you've already passed your holiday season, obviously, when you're listening to this, then you can still say an apology or an acknowledgement, whatever feels best, if you did snap, to, like, take ownership of it. I realize it was because of this. Like, if you can't front load them and say, "I think I would snap if this happened," you can text afterwards and say, "I wanna take accountability for the outburst that I had yesterday. I realize it was because at the end of my rope. It was nothing anybody did, and in the future, I will." Like, what are you gonna do differently in the future to to shift that if it does come up again. And that way people will, to your point of kind of that compassion and empathy, they will know that ideally for the next time. Or if you remind them again the next time, like, oh yeah, this happened at Christmas. I don't want to go through that again either. I'll do anything to help you. Or Hanukkah or whatever holiday you celebrate. So be mindful. You can get ahead of it. And if you've already passed that timeline, you can then take like retroactive accountability for it and do some inner work on yourself of what truly was so triggering. If you don't
Mhm.
know your triggers, think of all the things that would piss you off on a holiday, and then you will identify them if we get in a fight, in the car ride over there. So that's what I say to families, headphones, or if you can fly, or if you can do these things to avoid going to drive. If your children are old enough to drive, let them drive separately. Like, as much as you could mitigate the fallout, I would recommend to do so.
Yeah, I kind of off the debrief and more like that's preventative, but I'll still add a bit to that. It's like, yeah, be intentional.
Yeah.
If you're stressed going into the holiday, then everyone else is too, or a lot of people are. So then be intentional with, okay, am I gonna really bring this up? Am I gonna really choose to on the drive over start the fight now? And unfortunately, stress tends to make us not think intentionally because we're more in that panic, fight, flight, or freeze mode. But if you swear, okay, I want to be intentional and do that. That's just whatever, little side note to picture.
Yeah,
But
if you are listening to
uh,
this after, I would also say you can redo it. Let's say you did get in the fight and you're listening to this episode the morning after Christmas and you're like, "Shit, I totally did that."
mhm,
Go pause this right now after
mhm,
you listen to what I'm about to say and walk in and make sure it's a good time to talk to your partner and say like, "I messed up. I realized I was stressed and I started a fight because I was really worried about this happening and it caused so much worry that I ended up making it happen. I apologize." Or I own that I did that.
yeah. And on that apology stuff, I think side note, I would put that more into like that last scenario that I want to get to about where there really was more stuff. But I mean, this is still useful no matter what it do.
Yeah.
If there's anything that you need to own responsibly that you say, hey, I added to the
Yeah.
stress of the day, that works.
Yeah.
But I do want to come back to that apology thing for that last scenario.
Yeah,
But
and then
still in this second scenario where I'm thinking
oh,
about
same. Yeah,
things were fairly good, but it was a lot of
yeah.
energy expelled.
Where were
When
you a
you're
people
debriefing,
pleaser?
sorry, what?
I'm gonna say, where were you a people pleaser? That's the question I would have people ask themselves, and like, things went well, but there's still some tension.
Mhm.
Why so? Was it because things could have gone differently? Or was it because they went the way that they did, but you couldn't be who you really wanted to be in order for that to happen? I don't know
Mm.
about in your practice, but I often see one partner is the I obviously am boiling this down, but, like, one partner is totally fine with being the peace disruptor or not upholding the status quo, and the other partner is like, "No, like, we need to be the peacekeeper, like, keep order, the helper, the giver." So,
Yes.
being which one are you, and how can you lean more towards your partner? So if you are looking back on this and be like, "It went well, but I still feel like, this could have gone differently, or this one thing could have been better." That's that's the opportunity. Do I have anything to do with that? Can I change that at all? Or is this something to ask my partner? And then don't let it fester and get pissed off at them and take it out on them for another thing.
Uh-uh.
Hey, I would like
Thank
to
you.
do and you should plan this. Honestly, I recommend this for every couple too. Plan to have it's like the paradoxical intervention, not plan a fight, but kind of plan a fight. Like when
Yeah.
teens come in and they're arguing all the time, I tell them, "Okay, every day after school for 30 minutes, I want you to fight." In 2 weeks, they're like, "We don't wanna do it anymore." I'm like, "Yeah, because now you're allowed to, and in fact, you must." So, if you plan the debrief for not the drive home, or you could do it on the drive home, but I don't recommend ever having a tough conversation in a car. Everybody feels trapped, just don't do it.
Yeah.
Plan for it the next morning. Let's have a 30-minute put a timer. Each person gets 15 minutes or whatever you wanna do. Let's have a 30-minute debrief. Let's start with 3 things that went well, and maybe you don't wanna do it the day after because you need a few days to process, but plan for a separate holiday debrief conversation and give yourself time to filter it, because to your point, what if it went well, but these things could have been different? I might need a few days to calm down from it and to decompress and understand what is it that I'm really asking rather than just complaining at my partner indirectly when a few days later it would turn into an effective request for a boundary to be set in the future. So
Yeah.
give yourself a cool off period and then debrief with your partner.
Yeah. And in this debrief, another idea I want to put into is this like sense that there was enough stress. So then what kind of comfort and soothing do you need from your partner during this debrief?
Yeah.
And be on the lookout for asking your partner what kind of comfort and soothing they need. Again, nothing major. There's no big repairs that need to happen in this scenario. We'll get to
Right.
that in a minute or two with the last scenario. But this is still just like, yeah, whew, we got through it. We hung out with both of the families, or no family, just the friends, and that's a whole different version of emotions. Like we got through that. Hey, my partner, how are you doing with that now afterwards? Can I be here for you? Do you want to problem solve anything? Do you just want me to listen? Or, can I just be of comfort and soothing for you? And then also, here's the thing that was hard for me as we debrief. I'm just kind of like, I'm still kind of grieving the fact that this is my first holiday without one of my parents. Or I'm still kind of in grief mode after the fact that of how this went down. I didn't really like how I showed up in that, one conversation. Can you be here for me? Just kind of be sad with me for a second if that's the case. So just having an open discussion, and I always use those words like comfort and soothing. What kind of comfort and soothing do you need to ask your partner for? And what can you check in with them? Hey, do you need anything after this on this debrief about how the holidays were? Since it was a good time, but it's still stressful. And now we can kind of tie a nice bow on this wonderful holiday experience we put a lot of effort into, and then reconnect fully for ourselves, and then move on back to the next thing of life, whatever that is. So that's
Love
where I
that.
would kind of leave it in that like kind of positive middle place.
Yeah.
So moving on to the last scenario, the
My
big
favorite.
one. This is what everyone is scared shitless of, and why everyone gets stressed about the holidays is, the nuclear explosion during holidays. Maybe it does start on the car ride to wherever you're going, and then you and your partner get in a wicked fight, and you show up pissed off at each other
That's my
just to set the
favorite.
whole
You
day.
know when a couple, because 'cause they're like, "Hi," and you can see they have, like, help me eyes, or they're like,
Yeah,
"I almost ripped his head off in my car," and you
yeah,
can like the jabs, the slights. If
yeah.
this happens to you, well, I'm just gonna start out with you here,
Yeah.
and especially if you are already listening to this, you should listen to this on the way to your in-laws, whatever it might be. Do get in a fight or something happens prior to the arrival at whatever the event is, you must call a truce with your partner. You must just call a pause, time out. I wanna talk about this. Nothing is going to be accomplished from the walk to the car to their front door. We're putting a
No way.
pin in it. It's not acting, it's choosing overall the greater good of the relationship ideally is, "I love you, I'm on your team, I'm on your side. We're having a rupture right now. We must tend to this. We have to prioritize whatever the
Mhm.
family thing might be." And then you go in, and it's not about you trying to utilize jabs or this or that or put downs to surreptitiously almost tell your partner, like, "I'm still pissed at you." Like,
Mhm.
"Oh, did you want whipped cream on your pumpkin pie? I didn't plan for that because 'cause we're all out, so that just kind of sucks. Kind of like it sucked that you did don't do that. Do not do that. Do not."
I
And
agree, but I'm focused on, let's say you didn't do that. I'm
not in a
focused on
let's do it. I've been
after the
there too.
fact. And now you're debriefing like, "Oh, maybe we did some of those things, or your partner did some of those
Yeah.
things,
Oh, I've had
and
to say
that was
sorry
really
for
rough."
that.
Yeah.
I tell him I'm not my best self when I get stressed, obviously, but I am the first. I will say I try and not pride myself like egotistically, but like I am proud of myself for being able to say, "Wow, that felt like shit. I did not mean to make a dig at you. That is not I yes, I am stressed, and yes, I am feeling whatever it is about you or us or whatever. That was absolutely inappropriate. I feel awful. I feel guilty. I feel ashamed. I feel like my tail is between my legs. I wanna let you know I am sorry. I apologize for that, and if you would like me to also apologize in front of your family or take ownership, I am willing to do that."
Yeah.
So, really being kind of falling on the knife or whatever you want to call it, putting yourself out there and being vulnerable if you know you fucked up and you know you snapped or you know you lashed out or you know you picked a fight, say that to your partner. Take ownership because the rest of the conversation, their likelihood that they're gonna be defensive or try and only defend themselves and not defend the relationship, that likelihood of them that goes up in a positive way. They're like, "Okay, they see it. I don't have to punish them into seeing why they did what they did was wrong. They know that it was wrong." You can see the look in your partner's eyes when the light goes out a little bit and you've hurt them, and
Mhm.
in some ways it was in your intent, but many ways it was like, "Oh, I think I took it too far." Like, I'm Italian and I'm an angry person deep down. I've dealt with it obviously over the years, but it'll still come out.
Mhm.
Like, make no mistake, if I need to protect myself, I will. And sometimes, and I've shared this with my partner too, like sometimes my brain switches into that and I don't see you as my partner, the person I'm spending the rest of my life with. I see you as an enemy who must be destroyed. And that's on me.
Mhm.
And that is things I'm working on that actually I've done with every partner prior to you. So don't feel special in a good way. This really is not like you're triggering something in us. It's really for me to work on. So it's not your responsibility, nor should you have to deal with the fallout. Please know that I'm aware of it and I'm working on it.
Yes. Love those examples, and that's where, again, like, those different themes of apologies, even what you said for the second scenario still applies, plus deepening it here. When there's a need to actually repair, when actually shit went sideways and starting the repair. What I like about what you're saying is taking that stock of yourself, and is there something that, you know, if something went down, probably both partners
Oh, yeah.
have something that they can take responsibility for, that they can apologize for. And I'm not saying that then you have to, like, force your partner to do that. I'm saying if you're listening to this and you're not thinking about what you kind of did off, then you're probably missing something. And I get it. There can be some pretty egregious times where, like, your partner did the really bad thing and then your response was natural to that, but you can always take a look and be like, "Yeah, but could I really have handled this good or any better?" And you can all of this is I'm kind of jumbling is trying to say, like, look for the bid for reconnection.
Yeah.
These apologies are the way to initiate those bids. To
Yes.
say, I've thought about this. Yesterday sucked. My bad was here.
Correct.
And let me own that. And keep in mind the appreciation statements still have a place in this discussion of debrief. Maybe you don't lead because it could be like you're too disconnected still to even hear that. Maybe you can. I mean, you know your relationship, but I would still in this debrief remember the appreciation statements also.
Yes. And when you, if you apologize for something or take ownership for something and your partner's like, okay, thanks. And you look at them like, it's your line. Did you not get the script in the mail? Like, it's time for
Yeah.
you to apologize for doing that.
Yeah.
Don't bait them into that. Share. And this is something I really, really want to emphasize. If you are expecting that from your partner, tell them. In this conversation, it's like a five paragraph essay thesis. And in this essay, I will prove, and in this conversation, I'm going to take ownership for my stuff and my expectation, whether it comes true or not, but I'm going to let you know out loud so you know why I'm making these faces at you. My expectation is that you also acknowledge your part in this. If
Mhm.
you need some time for that, I understand because I'm the one who's prepared and ready to have this talk. I'm the one who wants it. I would like you to see it from my side. That's my goal. Separate from expecting you to take ownership and apologize, etcetera. That'd be great, but that's not my goal here. This
Mhm.
is what you can tell yourself and your partner. I would like to share what went down for me from my perspective, what I need to take ownership of, and what I think that you could as well. I'm not going to force you or blame you for it, but here's where I see it. Do you see it this way also? That gets you much farther in the conversation rather than like, and you're not even going to say that you said it. Are you fucking kidding? Like, I
Mhm.
mean, trust me, I can get angry, but being able to postpone that fight and post angry. Don't like jab at your partner like that. Make
Yeah.
sure that it's, I think that you could have taken ownership here and not saying it in a condescending way, saying it in a, I can't own that. This will only work if we both own all of our parts. And
Yes.
I cannot own this on your behalf because that's me people pleasing, compromising myself, etc. Compromising the self is much different than compromising the discussion or on something in the discussion. Do not compromise yourself or your values. Please compromise on, you're right. Yes, this is my value and I own it. And I could have said it differently rather than saying a snappy comment. In the future, what would help me is if you see me getting stressed, please do not tease me or goad it or bait me into that. That's the way you love on your family. I will snap. Please do
Mhm.
not do that, especially when I'm stressed, because the dragon lady will come out. So just know for the future, I am willing to do this. And in order for that to happen, I need you to do this in response. And you start to work as a team and have that reconnection. So in the future, it lessens the likelihood that you will snap or become the dragon version of yourself.
And what you just said actually helped me clarify, like, something I was thinking about of how these scenarios come up a lot. It's because everyone is stressed
Mhm.
and they're not seeing their partner stress. a
So
lot
very
of times.
egotistical in the moment. I'm
Yeah,
the only one who has a problem. I'm the only one who's
yeah,
stressed. The other person doesn't exist. They kind of
yeah,
like I imagine our clients
and
think we are. We just sit there in the chair and, like, reanimate when they show up.
yeah. No, and it's like what I said earlier about, like, stress, like, one of the functions of stress is, like, it does kinda put blinders on you, you just kind of focus on what you're stressed about. So, this debrief is useful for these examples, like, you're giving about how to go through that and, like, some good modeling. It's you're sharing with your partner, "Here's what was stressful to me, so please understand that." Because, my guess is that couples who didn't understand that before going into the holiday scenario are more likely to have these kind of big ruptures. Doesn't necessarily mean just because oh, my partner gets stressed because of her relationship with her
Yeah,
stepfather or whatever.
sure.
Doesn't mean that you're just because you know that you're not going to fight, but maybe review that and go, ooh, so what was so stressful for you in that place?
Be curious
And
rather
get
than
back to that.
yeah.
Yeah, and then again, generally speaking, when there's a kind of a fight or disconnect, both partners have places where they are responsible for something because they're probably stressed. So you can always be in that curious mode of understanding your stress and your partner's stress, and that's a good place to debrief and attempt some of this reconnection of, God, what was so challenging for you that even on the car ride over, it bubbled over and you called me a prick. Like, what went on there? Thank you for apologizing for that. And what was happening that me, making a left turn without my blinker set you off? Like, what, like, what's
Mhm,
going on?
mhm. Yeah, and knowing yourself and how you get and how you react, I think is so crucial. Like, I know when I'm angry now, if it's around my family, I'll just it's always been like that. I'll just like say it out loud
Mhm,
and put my foot down immediately because I don't play no games. But with my partner's family, it's not as e- nor would I want to. Like,
mhm,
I also sometimes don't like how I come across with my own family, but I really wouldn't want to come across that way if you are having one of those moments where it's happening in live time, like, how do I cope with this? The best thing that you can say if you have nothing to say is nothing at all.
mhm,
It doesn't mean you don't have a voice, it doesn't mean you can't stand up for yourself, but if you truly cannot formulate a sentence because you're so flooded or during this debrief you get so flooded, please say pause and bring yourself back down to, like, a normal respiratory level before you make the attempt. And you can also say, like, "This is too soon after for me to talk about it. I don't have enough to share. Stop. Like, we need to stop because I can't do this right now. Your best timing might not be your partner's best timing," is also what I like to say. Because you might wanna debrief because you feel so uncomfortable, and I've had that too where I'm like, "I gotta get this off my chest." Wasn't the best time for him. He had moved on, he had other work stuff to worry about, and here I am with, like, all this guilt and shame that I wanted to offload, and that was my job to learn how to sit with it and tolerate the distress, and I ended up sending it in, like, a nice message, like an audio I think it was audio or written message, but it wasn't, like, initiating a fight, it was,
mhm,
"Whenever you're able to get to this, I need to get this out. I
mhm,
understand that this might not be your best timing," like, I give the buffer, and then I sent it, and he was like, "Thank you. I really appreciate that you saw that as well. It didn't feel good for me." Like, it ended up being a very productive conversation when we were both at home later because you wanna get it out and you want to feel better. That might end up making your partner feel worse, or it might not be a time where they could hold space. So when you have this debrief, I in a summarization, when you have this
mhm,
debrief, make sure as much as you can that it's a good time for the both of you and that you're doing it in person and not over text. That is
mhm.
something that I have preached on, I'm sure you have as well, for years.
Yes.
Nothing important over text.
Mm,
Nothing it's not gonna get solved unless it's a very nice, like, "Thank you so much for debriefing with me this morning. I really feel so good." Like, that is serious by default. Like, it impacts the relationship in a positive way, but do not neg and jab at your partner over text of, like, texting him under the table, "Are you seriously not gonna say anything to your mom about blah, blah, blah? Oh, you got I'm fine, thank you. It's so good to see
yeah.
you, Barbara." Like, no, don't jab at them. You can pull them aside. We all know the secret code of, like, "I'm gonna go on a walk. Could you join me, honey?" "What the fuck was that? What are you kidding me?" And you're all smiling and everybody's watching from the window and they're like, "Oh, they're fighting, aren't they?" "We're good." You're allowed to call a pause for yourself. You're allowed to pull your partner aside. Do those if you're listening to this on the day or the day after, if you celebrate Christmas or Christmas Eve, like, pull them aside and debrief with them or try not to snap in front of the family. That would be my best advice, and I'm saying that to myself too in preparation. So
Friendly reminder.
do not snap, do not snap, do not
Before we wrap, I do want to actually say on the text comment, I'm sure we said this on the podcast multiple times, but it's always worth bringing up when it's there. Yes, text for administrative purposes only, or I guess not only, text for administrative purposes and flirting and compliments only.
positive. Yeah. Nothing that can be misinterpreted. Like, I love you. I hope you have the best day. That is not likely to be misinterpreted.
Yeah. Yeah.
Rather than like, did you really not think to do that this morning?
Yeah.
The dishes? Really? Or just sending a pic. That was my favorite. I've worked with many couples on that where they'll just like send a picture of it and the person's like, is this like a Where's Waldo? Like, why are you sending me this? They're like, did you not see this morning? And they're like, I don't have time for this shit. Do not do this. Do not. Just tell me later on in the day, hey, I don't know if you realize this, but before you left, you forgot to put the toothpaste away. Okay.
Yeah, not taken.
Matters to you more than matters to your partner. Put it away yourself.
Yeah.
You're all adults. Like, we don't get in relationships to have a servant or an assistant. You get in a relationship to have a partner who's also living their own adult life. To bring it back to the holidays, they have their own reactions. So maybe your debrief on the way there is there anything that you can think of today that may derail us that I can keep in mind? Here's my list. And if they say nothing, that's okay. They don't have to have a list ready to go. Let them start this conversation early. That would be my advice.
Got it. Cool. I'm going to say more, but we got to wrap. I think that goes through the debrief for the 3 scenarios very, very well. I do hope everyone did and does, I guess, does and did. I don't know. I hope holidays were awesome for everybody. I hope that was a good
Vibe.
time. Depending when you're listening to this, or maybe in future years listening
Yes.
to this for the ones coming up. But as always, thank you so much, listeners, for joining us for the podcast. If you got questions for us that you want us to answer on the podcast, shoot us an email. Ryan and Talia at thecouplesguidepodcast.com.
Yes, you could also answer my Q&A. I try to do it about once a week. It's at Talia Bambola on Instagram. And yeah, take good care, everyone. Did I take your line? No.
That's
Okay.
fine. As long as someone says something nice like that, we're good. That's it.
Yes, take good care and have a happy New Year.